I'm going to be pretty short. I just wanted to mention a couple of ideas that have jumped out at me from this conference. One of the things that that I've struggled with a little bit in looking at audits is that there often seems to be a tension between the idea that of what audits should be used for. On the one hand, I think there's been a lot of emphasis, and rightly so, in the literature about audits in the past couple of years, about using audits to ensure that the right candidate has won the election and to increase public confidence based on that. On the other hand, I see a lot of promise in using post-election audits to improve election administration, and to me, in many ways, that's in many ways the most important goal, because it helps us avoid what I see as the worst case scenario, which is finding out that there was a problem and that actually affected the outcome of an election. I think most of us anyway can agree that that's a scenario that we don't really want to see. And I thought Doug Jones' idea of these hot and cold audits, and maybe using the hot audits for I guess what I would call the public confidence, deterrence, and fraud goal of the audit, and cold audits later for improving election administration. I think that has to be worked out, and there's only so much time that we can spend on audits. We can't, obviously, we're not going to audit from one election to the next, but it might be one idea of dealing with the many goals that we have for auditing, and I think it's something that's worth exploring. Another thing that I've certainly struggled with in thinking about audits is that for most states, most states won't conduct audits at all, and most states that are going to be conducting audits in the next few years, it's going to be the first time that they're conducting audits. Even states like California that have been conducting audits for a long time, there are very new procedures that they're going to be dealing with in the near future. We're learning a lot about audits all the time, and as Candace said, we can't expect perfection to begin with. And I liked Fritz's idea that he discussed on our first night together about using pilots to start exploring new ideas for auditing. I don't think that means that we need to procrastinate on audits. I think actually the opposite. Piloting new ideas for auditing can be a way of doing something immediately. There's, I think, one of the most important things we can do in having these pilots, and even when we pass new laws, is to make sure that we're using the information to continually improve. That even when a new law has been passed or new procedures have been passed, to realize that that's not necessarily the end of the story, that there's still a lot more to learn, because although, as Doug Jones said, auditing isn't necessarily a new idea, it is a new idea to practice in most places. I think a key to improving audits is obviously collecting good data. Joe Hall talked about having standardized forms for collecting that data, publishing that data, and making sure that we're sharing it across jurisdictional lines, that there's communication between activists and election officials from one state to another in terms of what they're learning from their audits. And that when we collect that data, that we're all working together, so that it's publicly available, and that academics and others who are interested in election administration hopefully can work with election officials in learning from that data to get better ideas about auditing and election administration.